what will be 5 Twilight webinars that we'll be delivering across the course of the academic year. The first one is on the topic that you can see there. So it's looking at UCAS and applying to higher education. I'm really pleased to introduce colleagues from both of our partner universities. So we have Belle from Sheffield Hallam University and Denise from the University of Sheffield. So 2 different perspectives is going to be really useful to inform this session today. We will be recording the session for anyone that is unable to attend on the day, but also as a resource that we can put on our website. So if your cameras are blanked, that is why. So it'll just be the speakers and the presentation itself that will be viewable on the recording. In terms of any questions that people have, the chat function's working. So if you have any questions at all about the presentation during it, please pop any questions or comments in the chat. And what we'll do is we will kind of keep them until the end of the presentation, and then we will ask Belle and Denise to respond to them in turn, if that's okay. Fantastic. Right. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Belle and Denise. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex, and hi everyone. Thank you so much for your time this evening. So Denise and I will be doing a bit of a double act tonight, just to give you a bit of an overview of kind of UCAS and applying to higher education. We'll come at it as if the majority of people don't know anything about it. So we'll be going back to basics, but hopefully there'll be some kind of really good information in there to help you advise your students in the future. So we're going to be talking about what UCAS is, a bit more information about the application form, personal statement that students will be completing, referencing, how you find the information. We'll then be giving some information around the offer making, and then finally it'll be around our support and which universities offer what for your students when they are applying the application year. So to start off with, I'll just kind of go through the application stages, and a lot of this information that we're sharing today, both respective universities have sessions that they're able to deliver to students. So you can always book in further activity to support with some of these kind of decision-making timelines, and also some of the content, especially because we know that you give the students this information, but sometimes it just takes for someone external to relay that information to make it stick. So obviously we have applications, or we accept applications through the UCAS, the University and Colleges Admissions Service, and the website's detailed on the slides there. Most students choose up to 5 institutions and courses, pay the application fee, and then use the UCAS hub to track their information back from the universities. And this on the right hand side is a bit of an overview of the timelines that we tend to stick to. So advising students to start thinking about within the summer of year 12, start of year 13, researching those options courses, universities, and begin that UCAS application, with the 16th of October being the deadline for applications to Oxbridge, medicine, dentistry, veterinary medicine, science courses, deadline for medicine science, in October. November, December, obviously you'll have some internal deadlines, so we really kind of focus on making sure the students are aware of that. We also then talk about the January, the deadline for equal consideration, which this year is the 31st. March, obviously, some key timelines around student finance opening, accommodation applications, that type of thing. Then getting your responses in, so your students thinking about responding to their offers. The decline by default date is during May. Obviously, we have kind of like next steps and second plans, backup plans for August during results day, and we'll talk through kind of confirmation and clearing, support your students through that too, and then obviously September starting at the university. So the next section we're going to talk about is more around the application form, and I'll hand over to Denise.
Thanks, Belle. Fantastic. And I've seen there's a few questions coming up asking for slides to be shared, so we will look at trimming all of that together and make it email postable as well as we can. It's quite large at the moment as a file size, so we'll trim it for you and keep all the good information. So going on to the next slide, essentially we're going to kind of look at this from, as Belle has said, like really from the ground upwards, so that you can see where your roles fit into where your advice to the students is coming from as well. So obviously we've got, the students will need to create their accounts on the UCAS website. There's a lot that you would need to think about, and I'll kind of come into that. And there's more in the notes actually, so circulating the slides would be useful. But you know, at that point you need to think about advising your students about the nature of the email address that they might be using. For example, it might be one that they've had since they were, you know, 12, and you know, it's dancing frogs at lilypad.com. It's not one they're going to want to put on a UCAS application, so it's going through the kind of maturity of an email address or an alias or something like that, setting up that account with a decent email, and then linking it to the buzzword for your school or college, which is what's going to then make their account actually match up with your institution. And obviously that's really, really important, because that's your portal in then to accessing those applications and advising your students as they go along. Because of course, as Belle said, you know, the students pay the fee, and they or the college will pay the fee potentially, but it doesn't go straight to UCAS at that point. It comes to you for you to then do your work on supporting those applications by checking them and adding your references, which we'll give some further advice on in a bit. Belle will talk to you about that. So this is a bit of a snapshot of what the screen looks like now on the UCAS Hub. So once a student has created an account, they're going to see this sort of dashboard, if you like, with different areas showing the elements of progress of different parts of the application. So you've got it divided up into chunks: the choices, the profile, so the course choices, the profile of the person, the personal statement, and then the kind of overall progression percentage when they get to the point of submission. A little bit more detail there. Essentially, this is kind of the same sort of information. So overarching the hub, the student profile is where that will break down into their different, the bits of their personal information. Everybody always talks about the UCAS application and it's just the personal statement, but actually getting accurate information about themselves and their circumstances, particularly when it comes down to potential additional requirements that students may have, and then taking that information on through to their institutions, the universities of interest. It's really important that that is shown as early as possible. It doesn't disadvantage students' applications. The sooner they declare if they need additional support with, you know, if they have learning requirements or if they have other needs that need additional consideration or adjustments, the better. It will not negatively influence their application at all. What it does mean is that universities are better prepared in advance to make sure that they can support those applicants whilst they're working through this process. So that is definitely something to emphasise. The application sections then break down in the personal sort of profile part of it into these 10 sections here that you can see. You've got, well, sorry, it's not just the personal profile, because you've got the personal statement there, the choices as well for the courses, but you can see that there's quite a lot to go through. The students will need to make sure, especially, so I've kind of alluded to having a mature email address would be a good thing as they're going through this to start with. But the accuracy of the information that they give is super important. And we'll go through these different sections now one by one and break down some of the main advice that we would kind of emphasize really for you to pass on. Again, I feel like I'm saying the same thing like 1,000 times. It does matter that they have a sensible email address to get going. It's about a mindset of, you know, applying, taking a positive step forwards to what they want to do next. And then they will want to apply the same mindset when they come to apply for formal employment or additional part-time employment while they're studying or anything else like that. So it's the same, it's already starting that same flow of kind of mental attitude to the task at hand. And straight away, again, declare those disabilities or additional learning needs early on in the application process. Those don't go necessarily into the personal statement unless there is something specific that the students want to talk about. Utilize the space, you know, with the character limit, really utilize the other parts of the form where they can give that information. The next sections, the additional sort of details about what students have done. This is where if students are on any sustained programs, for example, with SHU Progress, or if they're on any of our sort of Access to Sheffield programs. Alex, I don't think the chat is muted. Sorry, I just saw that popped up there. If they're on any sustained programs, this is where to put it. If the students are, they'll be applying in Y13. So if in the summer between Y12 and Y13, they have, for example, taken part in any summer schools or anything else like that, this is where they can declare that by ticking the box to say which organisation it was. For example, Sutton Trust is something that we offer, a Sutton Trust summer school in partnership with them. So that is, again, that will be the section where that box could be ticked. It's really key that students declare that and find the right section to tick, because that is where, for some students, it will help their application to be sort of tagged within the university system. When we receive the applications from UCAS that we're somebody's choice, that's where we're able to identify students who have been on our programs and then match them to any contextual offers or adjusted offers as they go along. So ticking that box is really important. And at this point as well, if there are any students who are care experienced, young carers, have any additional needs, estranged, whatever it might be, at that point, again, in this additional details section, declare it. It will not negatively influence their application. It will mean that positive support can be put in place at the earliest opportunities. Then we come on to a bit about student finance. This is not the application for student finance. So that's definitely something to emphasize. The application for student finance is entirely separate in a different system on the .gov website. But this is a section where they can read through information provided, acknowledge that they've read it, but keep pressing that that application for student finance will be in the sort of February, March of year 13. Next section is the students' education, and this is where they will be able to put down what they have studied so far, the grades that they've got, and it is super important that they are as accurate as possible. So they will need potentially to have to dig out old qualification certificates so that it shows exam boards, it shows the exact expression of the grades, not just randomly remember, okay, it wasn't, you know, it was at this level and it was a something or other. Replicate it on the application form in the same way as it's shown on the certificates, because again, that's how the kind of this it aligns and standardizes how that application goes through, and you know, within systems, and then as it goes out to admissions tutors to be looked at, it's very easy to see if those students, where appropriate, if those students have the additional requirements for a course that may be needed at GCSE level, for example, or through some other experience or qualifications outside of that. The only thing that they obviously can't provide is what the outcome of their Y13 application qualifications are going to be, so that just gets put in as pending, and then that's where you also come in later on down the line, popping in the predicted grades. Next up, any employment information. It's okay if students don't have anything to put here. Don't substitute employment if they haven't got it, and put work experience in here. Work experience has a place in the personal statement, as does volunteering. If there's nothing that they can supply here of relevance, then it's okay if it's empty. However, what does relevance, what makes something relevant? Often it will be how doing a job, any role, actually facilitates a young person's social skills, ability to deal with conflict, interpersonal interaction, gives evidence of the ability to take on responsibility, for example, or if it's connected with a hobby, for example, that it shows that they have kind of the ability to commit and are dedicated and are interested in things that take them outside the realms of the direct area of academic study that they might be proposing to go on to. So there might be some talk around that, depending on what students are able to offer there. And then it comes down to the choices, the actual course choices. So it is to be narrowed down to 5, obviously. Generally, we would sort of recommend, as students are in year 12, kind of looking around, thinking about maybe 8 to 10 institutions. If they can visit those, fantastic. Look at the individual websites of the different institutions, because many of them can offer travel support, or at least reimbursement for travel support to open days, and then subsequently, as appropriate, to interviews. So narrow it down to about 8 to 10 places, visit those, get a feel for them, as you know, and then it's the 5. And it's not necessarily about sort of, when they choose those 5, initially, they're not necessarily in order of preference, but obviously, ultimately, there will be the first and second choice, the firm and the insurance choice. In terms of the similarity of the courses, whilst they can't all be exactly the same, an element of similarity across all of the courses is generally recommended, because there's one personal statement, and it's quite hard to tie very, very different courses together in one statement across different institutions. So we're not kind of saying make it bland, but definitely, so like, for example, you could have politics at one institution, politics and history somewhere else, politics and international relations somewhere else. That's fine. That's not a problem, because there's obviously a common thread there. But doing history in one place, geography in another, that's hard to kind of reconcile in one statement without wasting words, keeping them separate. The other things that students will need to think about and make sure they research carefully as they're looking at the courses is, what else do they need to feed into the application process or be ready to supply? Are they ready for interview? Interview preparation, should that be necessary? Obviously, interviews will be applicable for all courses which involve looking after another person or animal, for example. Is there a portfolio required? For example, architecture, landscape architecture, those sorts of things. And is there any element of testing required as well for entry? And it's at this point, for each individual course and each individual institution choice, that a student should indicate if they're deferring their entry. That doesn't come further down, it comes in this part. Okay, so bit of a roundup here. So long list, go and visit as many places as possible, advise them to do so. It is about how, finding the place that they're going to feel comfortable, as well as, you can do as much research on paper about, well, it's, this league table, that national student survey result, etc. It's this level of teaching, but go there. Are you comfortable? That's the advice to give. That will allow them to then narrow it down and emphasize that the students really need to consider, would they be happy to go to any of those 5? And if the answer is no, change your choice. Really, they should be happy to attend any of those 5. And then the final choices, the firm and insurance. Firm is your absolute ideal for the student, and then the insurance, again, should be equally happy to go to, but it's called an insurance for a reason, because it should have lower entry requirements. It's that safety net as much as anything else. However, as we come on through, it might be on this slide or further on, but as the students are going through the registration process, creating the account with UCAS, I can't emphasize enough, I know we're all very careful about data protection and everything else these days, unnecessarily so, but please encourage them to accept communications from UCAS, because all through this process, it's the best way for them to stay up to date about where they're at in the process. It will remind them if they haven't completed something. It will send them updates about, early registration for clearing and adjustment, for example. And that could be the best thing. They might be able to really back themselves up if they don't do as well as they can, or absolutely trade up if they do better than they expect, and through adjustment get onto a different course, or the same course at a different institution which they'd prefer to go to but didn't think they'd get into. So accept those, give the consent to be contacted by UCAS for sure. Okay, so then it's down to entry requirements, doing that homework. The predicted grades, I mean, they have to do their homework about, okay, where can they kind of get into? Are they meeting those entry requirements, particularly the prerequisites and any GCSE requirements? But the predicted grades, that's definitely where you absolutely come in, and they need that relationship with you to, and obviously it relies on your relationship with all of the students' academic staff as well, to back up their application, so that there is a match between the predicted grades, where they're going. There might be some small element of difference. Their first choice might be aspirational. Make it aspirational, absolutely, but not unachievable. So yeah, but they must be prepared to meet those requirements. And this is where, if they can declare any other reasons initially why they might need additional support, or if there's any extenuating circumstances, that also has to be really firmly shown in the application, so that where any adjusted offers or contextual offers might be made, this is where it can really come into play and be backed up. Okay, I'll hand over to Belle.
Thanks, Denise. Cheers. Okay, so the personal statement now. So there's loads of information online about completing personal statements, the things that you can include in that. But we thought it'd be really valuable to just kind of bring to the forefront what an admissions officer looks for when they're looking through a personal statement. So the kind of questions that you can ask your students on behalf of what we're looking for is kind of like, why do they want to choose that particular degree? Why is it that course? What's their passion for that? Why would there be a strong candidate for the course or career? So thinking about the skills and transferable skills that they've got. And I think that's really key when it's linking to kind of experience and achievements that they've got. How do they, I'm sure you all talk about this with your students anyway, but how do they use examples of skills that they've gained, and how will that help the degree that they're going on to in the future? I think it's really key as well to have a clear statement. So we really reiterate that free from errors, within the word count, making sure that they check it not only with their friends, family, but do different drafts of it as well, so they've got a real, they know it inside out and they understand exactly what the content is. They usually start with quite a long personal statement, cut bits out and make sure that the really relevant information is included in there. I can remember an academic within health used to say, please don't use kind of cheesy cliches or quotes to start off with, anything like that. I think she used to go through quite a lot of nursing applications, and she'd have that their inspiration was Florence Nightingale, and that would just be it. So it's kind of making sure that everything that they put in there, it's such a small amount of space, is relevant, is kind of utilising their own experiences, skills and achievements, and linking into their passion for that subject too. Another thing that we've had a few questions about recently as well is kind of ensuring that it's original work. So what will happen if it's copied, or can they use certain systems to write it for them, which is a new one that's coming up quite a bit. So yeah, the main key learning point from this is that it does need to be their original work. There is a similarity detection service that UCAS use as well, so we do need to make sure that it is theirs. And I suppose we always say if it is their friend that's copied off them and then they submit it first, theirs will be the one that they are kind of like looked at with it. So yeah, they're the kind of things that admissions officers are looking for. And there's loads of really good resources online that we advise students look at. So things like the UCAS website's got some brilliant videos on there step by step, and we'll share these slides afterwards so you can see those. Both universities offer personal statement sessions, so talks and workshops, so we can come and deliver talks about kind of the application process, similar to what Denise and I are talking about today, but then also we can go through kind of how your students will pull together a personal statement, the types of things that they need to be thinking about, how do they talk about their skills. I think especially from the pandemic, we've had real impact in students being able to kind of confidently talk about what they've done. So it's about kind of using those transferable skills and thinking about the STAR approach to their answers in the personal statement. So which not only helps them for university, but also for kind of job opportunities and things like that. So really key kind of learning that we can support your students with if you get in touch with us about that. So the reference, obviously, this has been there's been a big change for writing references for 2024. So I've got a lot of information from UCAS, and it'd be really interesting actually to hear your feedback about how you're finding the reference process and pulling together the relevant information for that. So obviously, once the student has finished their application, Denise has already said it doesn't go straight to the university. You get the opportunity to look through that, check the application and add your reference with the predicted grades. And the key thing that we say here is that it can be sent back to them. So they need to make sure that it hasn't got any errors, that they're utilising the correct character space, all that type of stuff, and just reiterating those messages that I'm sure you give them most days. So obviously there has been some big changes this year, and yeah, in the chat, if you want to put in how you're finding the process, that type of thing, and we can also speak to our admissions teams if there's any kind of questions or concerns that you're still dealing with while you've got this new form. So obviously the changes have come about because the reference was just a bit more of a laborious task to do. It was also the free text format previously was becoming challenging. It was difficult to be able to kind of compare different applicants as well. So the referencing was quite a contentious subject, I suppose, and UCAS have done quite a lot of work to engage with focus groups from teaching advisors, students as well, just to look at the kind of changes that they're making to the UCAS application, and being able to kind of make positive changes so that it's an easier process for you in the long run. So for the 2024 entry now, they have replaced the free text with the 3 structured sections, and these changes are implemented, like I said, following that extensive review, working with different advisory groups, and they hope that the key benefits from this will be kind of building in that clarity and confidence, that you're providing information in kind of shorter, sharper sections, that hopefully you'll have more time and resource to support the students with writing their personal statements and their application, rather than you having to spend all that time writing the references. And then obviously, because it is in 3 different sections now, it's easier for universities and colleges to actually read through that as well, and be able to kind of pull out that key information that we need. So the new 3 sections are, the initial section is around that general statement about your school, college, centre. There's also a handy area on the reference writing bit on UCAS, where you can actually replicate that as well. So if you've got a standard approach for your school or college, you can replicate that on a number of different references. The second section is about those ECs, so those extenuating circumstances which may impact the applicant's education and achievement. So there's some really useful information on the UCAS website around the admissions reforms, which you can access, where there's examples of where they've pulled together an overview of what that might look like. So that can be things like maybe they've got some mental health issues that have been impacted in the studies. That's where you can insert that information there. It may be that they've shown real resilience for the last year because of a number of different things. It might be that they have received means tested bursary that supported him. So it's those kind of things that showcase those ECs from the applicant. And then the final section is any kind of supportive information to the applicant and relevant to the course that they've applied for, so that you think we need to be aware of. And I suppose the key thing is to check out the UCAS website. I've put a QR code here that's got a breakdown of kind of all that additional support that's really helpful and really useful, so that you can kind of utilize that, this step-by-step kind of sections around how you navigate the reference area on the UCAS website. There's information around kind of examples of those 3 different sections, so you know exactly what to write in there. And I think I speak on behalf of Denise as well, that we're more than happy for you to contact us if there's any questions around writing a reference, or we'll be talking a little bit later about the support opportunities that we have at the universities as well. So if you have got any students that are facing barriers to come to higher education, we have got the method to be able to kind of support them and you with kind of the next stages of their application cycle. So I'll hand back over to Denise just to kind of round off some of those kind of offers once the students have sent in their application.
Yeah, absolutely. What we say essentially, okay, submission clicked, information checked by you, final submission gone to UCAS, information goes to the universities. There's a number of different ways that universities are actually handling their incoming applications. Some will batch review, whereby they will wait until the kind of final deadline to receive all applications to a particular course, and then do a kind of whole strength of field assessment and make offers based on that. Other institutions will look at those applications as they come in one at a time, and then respond to them individually as they come along. Yeah, you can potentially find. Well, I know Exeter, for example, are kind of doing whole field batch assessments of their applications at the moment. At Sheffield, we don't, and I don't believe at Hallam you do that. I don't think. I'm kind of looking at Bell, but I'm not. I don't think so. So the students will then be looking to get. Oh, sorry.
Sometimes they do gathered fields on some of the health and social care courses. So
Okay.
they'll look at kind of applications that have come in a bit earlier, look through that, and then they'll look at an assessment criteria too. So yeah, there's a little bit of that kind of gathered field that we do in some cases.
Okay. Brilliant, thanks, Belle. So it's quite useful for you to kind of know that, so that you can manage some students' expectations, whereby they might be getting a bit flustered if it seems like they're not getting any responses and their friends might be. It doesn't necessarily mean it's all bad news. And if for specific institutions or specific courses, it's not apparent from the university's website what approach they're taking, then advise your students to get in touch and ask, and the universities will be able to inform them. So the decision types that they might get back can vary. Where an offer is made, most often it will be a conditional offer, which is generally saying it has to be subject to the students passing their exams at the appropriate level, and then achieving any additional requirements alongside that. It might be that the student might be doing an EPQ, for example, and the offer for the course and the grade offer that's been put in is conditional on that EPQ being achieved at a certain grade, for example. So look carefully at what comes through. It may be an unconditional offer. Typically, we would advise against sort of students, falling over and relaxing completely if they receive an unconditional offer. It tends to kind of pull the pin on motivation. Usually, the most useful place an unconditional offer is made is where a student has actually already achieved a grade the year before and is potentially applying afterwards, the following year. They've already got the qualifications, it's already known, so it might well then be, well, it's unconditional, we know that you can get straight in. But if it's pre-exam results, advise students to remain calm and keep working, because if they do better than expected, then they, as I mentioned before, can always kind of like adjust upwards to a different course that actually they would prefer to do, but they didn't set their hopes on, a different institution or what have you. The decision types that come back as well, it may be subject to interview, depending upon the course that they're applying for. It also can come back and say that it's an unsuccessful outcome and that that particular institution can't offer a course, can't offer a place for that course. It doesn't mean to say that the student's kind of relationship with that university then is done and dusted, because come results day, it may well be that they're able to, if they're set on the institution but are happy to kind of vary on the course, then through clearing, that might be that, or a change of course offer even sometimes, where a student has kind of dipped down a little bit in the grades, that might be a discussion that can come through with that institution as well. So yeah, just be persistent, tell them to be persistent. The student has on results day, prior to results day, they need to indicate what their firm and their insurance choices are by the deadline that's indicated in the UCAS hub. For 2024 entry, I'm not quite sure what that specific deadline is, but you will be able to look that up. And then often linked in with the offers will be information about university accommodation. Some of the offers that come through, the conditional offer might be, we will offer you this subject to you, and we will offer you this accommodation subject to you making us your firm choice. So there's all sorts of things in the mix that students will need to think about in terms of what works best for them. And then that might come prior to them making up their mind about which way to go. For SHU, the accommodation offer comes once the application's already been made. I don't know if you want to say anything a bit more about that, Belle?
I think just to reiterate that I know obviously most people in this call are local and advising local students that might not necessarily want to move away from accommodation, but I think we've got a really good accommodation offer in Sheffield compared to a lot of other cities. It's a lot more reasonable in price, and there's a lot of accommodation as well. So especially kind of within Sheffield, you not having those stories of people going to universities to study and then being placed in accommodation that's totally different to where they thought they'd be studying. So I think it's just the key thing that we really want to reiterate, that if people are thinking of moving out or moving into halls of residence, that Sheffield's a real good opportunity to kind of do that. It's good value for money, and there's lots of opportunities. So at Sheffield Hallam, everyone in their first years are guaranteed halls of residence, and they can apply once they've applied to SHU as one of their 5 choices. So yeah, I think it's just the key thing to kind of reiterate that there's lots of accommodation and the opportunity for them to kind of gain those skills from being out. And also living with other students. Some halls of residence are specifically for the different universities, but there's also mixed ones, so it's a good opportunity to make new friends. I think that's one of the key things that they're sometimes ask questions around is, will I make new friends? Will I kind of be okay not being at home? So yeah, I think that's just a key thing to kind of reiterate there.
Brilliant, thanks, Belle.
That's all right.
Yeah, then the day itself. So exam results. I think the UCAS system opens from kind of logging in from sort of 8 a.m. on results day, but depending on what's going on in your school or college, students may be going straight in to get those from you. But there's a link up there with UCAS as well. And then via UCAS Track, which is part of the whole system once the student submitted their application, there's that option then to confirm which choice out of the firm or the insurance that the student is going to accept and go forwards with. And then that all of that kind of information all updates at the same time on the same day. And then also on results day, the clearing process opens across, well, but basically all institutions, but not necessarily all courses. And in the run up to that, most universities will make it clear which courses are included, because generally on that day, time is of the essence. If students have achieved under or over what they were expecting to get and want to kind of move around accordingly. The main thing is that, if a student wants to change their choice on the basis of either achieving higher or lower grades, the first thing to do is to have they must have that contact with that first institution that they've chosen, because they kind of almost need to be, it's kind of like have that conversation. Is there anything else that institution can offer them? Line up what the alternative choice is going to be. Make sure that they're going to, have that actual opportunity. Then they have to be kind of dropped back into the pool. There's like that moment of free fall back into the pool, so that then the following institution can then look out for them and pick them up, and then they go straight into the process with that institution instead. So it takes a bit of coordination and communication, persistence on clearing helplines, etc. But yeah, that's, we're there to help you on those days, quite apart from the tranche of staff that we have on all the telephone lines across both institutions, ready and waiting to speak to students to help advise them accordingly. Okay.
Thanks. So back over to me again. So yeah, we just wanted to really kind of give you a bit of information about the support that each university offers, especially within the kind of the application process and going forwards into being on course and what they get when they're here. I think we're doing a lot more activities with students that are having this kind of concern around the support and being able to kind of be successful at university. So we want to make sure that this is that you're aware of these things that we offer, and that they can help not only you but also the students. So I thought it'd be worthwhile just to kind of, I'll talk a little bit about Sheffield Hallam support, and then we'll hand back over to Denise to talk about the University of Sheffield support. So on course, it's worth talking about students that come to Sheffield Hallam get the kind of the 3 advisors, so the triangle approach. So a student support advisor, kind of supporting students with help and advice about difficulties that arise that affect their study. So they can also kind of signpost them to different opportunities for well-being. Maybe it's kind of dealing with certain situations, living with new people, all that kind of stuff. I think the key thing that we want you to take away to advise your students is to just ask people, and don't be afraid to go and kind of search for those opportunities to share those problems. They also get academic advisors, so supporting that academic journey and performance, helping students achieve their goals, and guiding them through the options for further study and develop afterwards as well. So it's not just about getting that degree. You're also they have opportunities to kind of tap into a lot of support as alumni, and also supporting them with placement opportunities and stuff at both universities. And then finally, that employability advisors, so supporting them with kind of their career options, their placements, their CV writing, all that kind of stuff to make sure that they're comfortable and that they're making the most of that university experience. But for you guys, when you're advising students, you may come across certain individuals that have that require additional support, or have personal circumstances that might mean that they have barriers to come to university. And at Hallam, we run what's called the SHU Progress scheme. So it provides additional support to the year of application, so when they're in year 13, and throughout that application process, and including that transition to on course as well, which I think is really key. So there's just some information on there around kind of like how they get that support, so a personal contact, referrals to specialist teams, they get a newsletter, support with kind of their cost of travel to the university, so that might be for sessions with the SHU Progress team, but also it could be for open days, that type of thing. They also may get a contextual offer in the case of having that additional consideration during the admissions process too. So in most cases, it'll be you that would do a kind of a reference for them, or you'd fill in their information through that nomination form, which we'll share the details for afterwards. And then they can kind of be in contact with us afterwards. We've also got a real key team that are really helpful with regards to kind of checking whether you think the student is eligible for those areas, and open for any questions, that type of thing. So there's a list on there about the groups that we support, and a QR code to access the SHU Progress website. So again, these will be shared, so you will have access to that. So I think the other thing that helps us pick up these kind of key support mechanisms is encouraging the students to fill in that more about you section, which Denise mentioned at the start. So there's kind of a couple of sections where they ask about these things. So if the students have got a disability, or if they're estranged, or they're a parent or part of a military family, this is a real area where they can kind of include that information, and we connect them to that support that they're entitled to and that they can access. And sometimes that can be sooner rather than later. So those plans can be put in place in good time. So when they enrol at the university, they've got that all in place beforehand. So I think we'd just really really, it would be beneficial if they kind of include that. And don't be, Denise mentioned it earlier, but for them not to be afraid that anything that they put in those sections will have an impact in their application. That's not the case at all. It's really an opportunity for them to share that information so we can support them as best we can. And then final thing around contextual offers at Sheffield Hallam. So they obviously are there to help make sure that everyone who applies has a fair chance of getting a place, regardless of their background. So SHU Progress members are eligible for getting a contextual offer, and then those who also indicate it on their application form, so they might not be a member of SHU Progress, but they do detail it in that. There's lots of information and details about the eligibility criteria on our website. So there's a QR code that you can scan to have a look through that, or you can just give us a ring, and the SHE Progress and the Access Development team have been more than happy to kind of go through that process and help you advise your students going forwards. Okay, over to you, Denise. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a little while. I know we're kind of coming up to some time to have a bit of a chat, and carry on if you want to pop any questions that you've got in the chat box there. But just to reiterate, we've kind of got in a similar way the same sort of levels of advisors for students once they're at the university, kind of personal, academic and employment wise. We have our Access Sheffield offer as well, so if you were to look that up on our websites, that's where you'll find again those kind of eligibility criteria for students, and how we may support them coming on their entry to university. But also importantly, there's a big piece of work on sort of joining up the dots of what happens for them once they're with us as well. But in terms of broader support for things that you can direct students to, and actually that you can tap into as well, because there are some teacher sessions in this, we've got regular Sheffield Live sessions which cover kind of career opportunities, study skills and support sessions like that, and also then academic taster sessions, which are also called Sheffield Live, so it would be Sheffield Live ... and then whatever it happens to be. That's all featured on our website. So if some students want to have some subject insight, that will generally involve teaching staff from specific departments. I'm supporting one in the next couple of weeks for German studies, I think it is, and we've got students on that course coming in as well, and chatting about what their learning experience is like and their university experience is like. But we've also then got a chat to us page where we've got a number of students and their profiles are online in a safely moderated environment where your students can drop in a question to their chosen student on the basis of a similarity that they recognise out of their experience, or something that they want to ask about their subject or whatever it might be, and they can use that then to have that kind of online chat function. It's not live, so there is that kind of delay and moderation and response time, but it is direct, so it is that kind of that one-to-one conversation directly with somebody based on what their lived experience or their study experience is.
Yeah, and I suppose for both universities, it's there's open days that students can go along to ask those questions. We've both got live chat, and then also our handles on social media that students, teaching advisors can access to. We'll share these details afterwards, like we've said throughout the presentation, so you'll have access to those as well, and some details around kind of finding out further information. So thank you. I think that's it for us. Any questions?
Thanks ever so much, Belle, and Denise. Really, really useful stuff. If you want to unshare the screen, and then we should be able to see if any questions come through. There's none at the minute. While we're waiting for any questions to come through, I will do a plug, just to say that obviously today's webinar was the first of 5 that we're going to be delivering throughout the academic year. So we're looking at a series of twilight sessions. We also have a face-to-face, a half-day event aimed at new practitioners, so staff who are maybe new to this area that would like to understand a bit more about everything from admissions to financial support through to our 2 universities offers. And the first event for new practitioners is going to take place on Wednesday. I'm going to have to check the date to make sure that I don't get it wrong. Wednesday the 6th of December, and that's going to be hosted at Sheffield Hallam University. So it's going to be a half-day event from lunchtime onwards. So we're going to put on a lunch, and you can even do your Christmas shopping when you're finished in Sheffield. So it's a win-win for all involved. Right. If nobody has any questions, then I will tie up today's session. So yeah, again, a big thanks to Belle and to Denise for your session. And we will be sending out the recording, so staff who were here and who weren't can have an opportunity to access all the resources that we went through today. Wonderful. Okay, thanks for your time, everybody.